Tired of manual processes? With RunMyProcess, integrating with NetSuite is seamless and efficient. In this video, we'll show you how to automate invoice management, streamline workflows, and save valuable time. Let's get started. Let's begin configuring the integration between RunMyProcess and NetSuite. Once inside the Settings section of our project, navigate to the Connectors tab. This is where we'll start setting up the integration. In the Connectors tab, locate the ++ icon at the top right. Click on it and select the New Provider option. This step will allow us to set up the initial connection with NetSuite. Next, we'll name our provider NetSuite OAuth. For the protocol, we select HTTPS. Then in the URL field, we input the URL provided by NetSuite, which includes our account identifier, as shown on the screen. We leave the authentication schema set to none. After that, we repeat this setup for the test, acceptance, and live environments to ensure consistency across all stages. Now, let's create the connector to obtain the security token required for making requests. Start by clicking on New Connector. In the dialog box, name the connector Get Access Token. This will serve as the connection point for retrieving the security token from NetSuite. In the URL field of the connector, enter the endpoint, auth1's token. This is the specific path NetSuite uses to handle token requests. For the architecture, we select REST, as this will use a RESTful API structure. Next, for the method, choose POST, since this is the method required to request an access token. Next, in the result format field, select JSON. This ensures the response from NetSuite will be properly formatted for processing. In the content field, make sure to input the structure exactly as shown on the screen. This includes all sensitive information, such as your client credentials, account identifiers, and any other required fields. For the content type, select Application Desk MUD Form URL encoded. This format ensures the data is properly encoded for secure and successful communication with NetSuite. Once all the fields are correctly configured, click on Save. And that's it. We've successfully created the connector for authentication, which will allow us to retrieve the security token. Now let's proceed to create the provider for managing invoice requests. This will enable us to retrieve and process invoice data directly from NetSuite. We'll begin by naming the new provider NetSuite Invoice. This will clearly identify it as the connection for handling invoice-related requests. For the protocol, select HTTPS. In the URL field, input the structure exactly as shown on the screen. This should match the endpoint used for NetSuite's REST services to manage invoices. In the authentication schema field, select OAuth v2. For the access token, we'll use a variable named NetSuite Access Token. This variable will dynamically store the token required to authenticate and authorize invoice requests. Once all the fields are correctly configured, click on Save. Now, let's create our first request, which will be to retrieve an invoice. To begin, click on New Connector to set up the request. Let's name the connector Get Invoice. This will clearly define its purpose, retrieving a specific invoice. In the connector URL field, input invoice number. This dynamic URL structure allows us to specify the invoice number as a variable, making the request flexible for different invoices. For the method, select Get. This method is used to retrieve data from NetSuite at the result format to JSON. For the accept media type, input star. This allows the request to accept any media type returned by the server. And that's it. Magnificent. We've successfully completed the configuration of our Get Invoice request and set up everything needed for our integration with NetSuite. Now, let's proceed to test the configuration. In the Get Access Token connector, we'll now input the JWT JSON Web Token provided by NetSuite. This token is essential for authenticating and securely accessing NetSuite's API. With the JWT properly configured, click on Test. NetSuite will process the request, and if everything is set up correctly, it will respond with the access token. This token is essential for authenticating and making future API requests seamlessly. Now, let's test the Get Invoice connector. Click on Launch to initiate the request. Enter the access token we retrieved earlier, along with a valid invoice number to test the setup and ensure the request retrieves the correct data. To test the Get Invoice connector, click on Launch. Enter the access token we retrieved earlier and a valid invoice number. Then, click on Launch Test to send the request to NetSuite. If everything is configured correctly, NetSuite will respond with all the details of the specified invoice, confirming that our integration is working seamlessly. This demonstration highlights just how powerful RunMyProcess is when it comes to integrating your applications with NetSuite workflows. With its flexible and robust tools, you can streamline your business processes, automate tasks, and ensure seamless communication between systems, all in one platform.